So today, we're going to dive into a pretty powerful idea, this hidden feedback loop that connects our minds, our bodies, and even our experiences at work. We'll be breaking down a really fascinating white paper that shows how something like a learning difference can set off a whole cascade of physical and social challenges. Let's get right into it.
And really, it all boils down to this one kind of wild question. How on earth can a learning difference, like dyslexia, actually lead to chronic neck pain and even exploitation at your job? I know, it sounds like a major stretch, but as we're about to see, the connection is shockingly direct.
So, to really wrap our heads around this, here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at what sets off the chain reaction of stress. Then, we're going to explore that incredible link between the brain and the body. We'll see how that all plays out in the real world of work, and then, and this is the cool part, we'll look at a unique two-part solution that brings together psychology and philosophy.
All right, let's start with that first piece of the puzzle, the chain reaction of stress. Before we can connect all the dots, we gotta get on the same page with a few key terms that the source material uses. First up, the term juggernauts. Now, when the paper talks about juggernauts, they're not just talking about a bad day. They're using this really powerful word to describe these sustained, almost crushing experiences. Think ongoing trauma or a major lack of support that can actually mess with a person's physical coordination and even how they see the world. It just piles on top of the challenges of being neurodivergent. Next is a really big one, educational gaslighting. This is what happens when a person's neurodivergent condition is just dismissed, invalidated. You're told it's not real, or you're just not trying hard enough. And that's not just hurtful, you know? It literally robs them of the support and the exposure they need to learn, putting them at a huge disadvantage right from the start.
And that brings us to the final piece of this initial puzzle, the no-name problem. This is where everything we've just talked about crashes into the reality of the workplace. The paper identifies this issue where neurodivergent workers are essentially invisible. Their needs, their strengths, their challenges, all of it is ignored, which leaves them totally vulnerable to exploitation.
Okay, so we've got these core pressures defined. Now for the really fascinating part, the brain-body connection. This is where we get to see how all that psychological and social stress becomes, well, physical. It goes from the mind right into the muscle.
So where does it all start? The whole chain reaction kicks off with that psychological trigger, that constant invalidation from educational gaslighting. It creates this state of intense chronic stress. And this isn't just a feeling, it's a real physiological response that kicks the body into high alert.
And this stress, it isn't just in your head, right? It shows up in your body. It often starts as this intense tension right around the eyes and temples. This throws your entire autonomic nervous system. That's your body's automatic fight-or-flight response, completely out of whack. And that creates this awful self-reinforcing loop where the stress just keeps feeding on itself.
But the tension doesn't just stay in your head. Oh no, it starts to cascade downwards through your body, and it ends up overloading what you can think of as a key neurological fuse box in your upper body. It's like a circuit that's just constantly being tripped. And that fuse box actually has a name in the paper, the trapezius gray. It's this diamond-shaped muscle area that connects your spine and your nervous system. And when it becomes hypertonic, which is just a way of saying it's chronically painfully tight, it's like a physical alarm bell, a clear sign of all that bottled up mental and emotional stress.
Okay, so let's zoom out for a second. We've seen what happens inside the body, but what happens when that person walks into the workplace? This is where we hit the invisible worker problem. It's where all those personal struggles slam right into systemic barriers.
So what does this no-name problem actually look like day to day? Well, it means neurodivergent workers get pushed to the margins. They're often denied the basic accommodations and recognition they need. Naturally, this can lead to serious financial instability, and it just reinforces this awful feeling that nothing you do will ever make a difference. A classic case of learned helplessness.
So what you end up with is this absolutely vicious cycle, right? The physical stress in your body makes it harder to cope at work, and the stress from the workplace just keeps fueling that internal tension. Each problem makes the other one worse, trapping a person in this downward spiral.
So, the big question is, how do you break a cycle like that? Well, the paper lays out a really interesting two-part solution. It all starts with building a solid psychological foundation, really getting to the why behind the problem. And this is where applied psychology comes into play. It's the toolkit for healing. It's about scientifically diagnosing the root causes, tackling that out-of-whack nervous system head-on, building up resilience to deal with the outside world, and crucially, empowering people to stand up and advocate for themselves.
Okay, but healing that initial damage, that's just step one. To make it last, the paper argues for a second, really critical stage, mastery through philosophy. This is all about learning how to live differently with this new understanding.
So you see, it's this clear two-step path. Step 1, applied psychology. You figure out the why and you heal the foundation. Then, step 2, applied philosophy. You build the framework for how to actually live your life from here on out. It's like a powerful 1-2 punch for real lasting change.
Let's put them side by side, because this is super important. Psychology is all about the why. It's the diagnosis, the healing, building up that resilience. But philosophy, that's the how. It's about taking all those insights and weaving them into the fabric of your life. It's about going from just healing to actually mastering your own evolution. One clears the ground, the other builds the new house. And this isn't just some vague, abstract idea. The paper actually points to specific tools for this, like something called prismatic cognition. It's a whole framework designed specifically to help 3D visual thinkers take all that adversity and literally flip it into a unique, adaptive strength.
Ultimately, the whole goal of this entire process is to create what the paper so powerfully calls a transformative and integrated pathway out of invisibility toward empowerment. I mean, that's a pretty incredible vision of what's possible.
So, what we've just unpacked is this incredible, hidden connection between our minds, our bodies, and the systems we work in. And it really leaves you with a big question, doesn't it? What other invisible connections are shaping our lives that we're just completely overlooking? What other systems could be holding us back, or, if we just understood them, could actually set us free?